So I run this, I'm the founder and run this website called Værstat.no. As I said, I have a master in business administration, civiløkonomi is called in Norwegian. I'm not an academic, but I have a practical background dealing with data, various types of data, in companies mainly. So data analysis, forecasting, budgeting, estimation, reporting. And I worked for several years with a kind of data revolution, which is business intelligence, new tools that companies use to deal with data, big data, and automate that treatment of data. So I'm using that certain tools in my website in order to run the website and do the statistics for me automatically. And in my line of work, my observation is that how you present data has consequences. In my work, I work in a company. If I present data in a certain way, that has consequences for that company. In the media, that's the same thing, and politicians, the same thing, how you present it. I'll give a little bit of background as to why I started the website. We have a web page in Norway called yr.no. It's a weather forecasting website. It's a collaboration with NRK, the public broadcaster in Norway, and the Meteorological Institute of Norway. So it's tax funded. They had, in addition to weather forecasting, they also had climate statistics available. And I like this statistics because it gave a good explanation as to what you see. And it gave in my view, a fair representation of the data in a way that is easy to understand. I'll just, a lot of my slides is in Norwegian, and my website is in Norwegian, but I'll try to translate certain parts of it and walk you through it in English. What happened in 2019 is that you were greeted with this webpage. Climate is removed. They just removed the visualization of the data. The data is still available, but the visualization, as you see here, is gone. And they explained it by, they were making a new web page and they wanted to present it in give a better web page. And this is what they made. The longest you can go back is 13 months. So you go from, the first one was 1900 to today, and 13 months. That's a long-term statistic. So the initial thought of Værstat was making weather statistics more accessible again, and recreating what they deleted. So this is one example of what I created. It's the monthly mean temperature in Oslo, from 1837 to 2025. And these are the various months. And I like to make it as neutral as possible. And one way is to keep the y-axis fixed. So you can filter to various months in the web page, and you can look at January. So I recreated the statistic. This is, as you can see, this is for the region around Oslo, what they presented, and this is for Oslo weather stations. They changed the weather stations, and it's calculated to get so long statistic. So you see the trend here is recreated. You see the same trend here. So this is my webpage. I publish various types of statistics. I just add it as I go. This is not my full-time job. I can't live off this, so it's a part-time, a nighttime job, so to say. So I have a regular job, and I just keep on adding. Today in addition to publishing statistics, I also write articles because I'm a curious person, and I also get a lot of questions from readers. They read an article in the news and they say, well, is this correct? And then I look at my statistics and check. I've run this webpage in approximately 5 years. So I've written 135 articles that gives a critical eye on the media coverage. around weather statistics. So clearly there's a need to look at this in a critical way. And I feel I scratch the surface when I do this. I'll start off, and in this presentation we'll look on three examples. I'll just start off with a rare moment of self-reflection in the media. We don't see that very often. So media companies, and this is VG, that's the leading tabloid paper in Norway. They did a mistake. So when they do a mistake, if you're an honest journalist, you make a correction. So this mistake is that we initially wrote that 1.5 centimeters is 10 times 15 millimeter. The fact is that it's the same. So 15 July, they made the correction. But in addition to this, they made a self-reflection. It says, journalists have many strengths. Mathematics is not one of them. I think maybe most of us could agree to that. The three articles I'll go through is from NRK. That's the public broadcaster in Norway. They're state-funded, so tax-funded, and they're a dominating actor in Norway. So they drive the, so to say, the public discourse in many ways. And that's why I focus heavily on them. In 2025, they had a budget of 7.5 billion NOK, which is 640 million euros. So they have a huge budget in Norwegian terms. So let's look at the first example. We look at Svalbard temperature statistics. This is from 2020, and it says, record warm summer in Svalbard. And I quote, 3 degrees over normal, and they're quoting a climate scientist, the global climate change is hitting Svalbard hard. So let's look at, in this article, they presented statistics. So that's what I looked at. This is what they presented. Do you see anything wrong with this graph? So I looked at 2020, it said filtered curve 2,117 degrees. It said deviation, filter, and measured. I know for a fact that these statistics come from, this is for Longyearbyen, Svalbard airport. We didn't have an airport in Svalbard in 1900, so they couldn't have measured it. So it's like calculated, estimated. So I sent an email to NRK, asked about this. So this is the second try. They didn't answer the email, they just changed the article. The picture changed a little bit because they added the deviations. But still, it says deviation, filter, measured. So what's the deviation against? What's the filter they used? And this is still measured. So I sent them another email, so this is a second try, and this is a third try. Summer temperatures averages June, July, August, so it doesn't say measured. It says deviation from normal, 1961 to 1990, and 10-year averages. So that's the final try. And they explained in the correction, they blame technical error. I don't think they understood what they were presenting. That was the reason. So in my webpage, I've published the Longyearbyen airport statistic, so you can look for yourself. And this is the season average temperatures Svalbard airport, the calculated, estimated. And this is the winter temperatures. You see a huge variation between minus 25 almost to minus 5, and varying a lot from year to year. What do you think the summer temperatures look like? The same graph. So try to imagine. So in my webpage, you can push this filter and add it. Y-axis is fixed. And this is what it looks like when you compare it to the variation in the winter. Gives a little bit different picture to what they initially. They made this. I think Guy showed it. hockey stick. They managed to make their own hockey stick. Yes. I also published the unfiltered values, so you can look at the data unfiltered, the daily mean temperatures. So it's only averages for one day. And this is 127 years of daily mean temperatures from day 0 to day 365. And I like to watch this statistic when I look at temperature stations, because you get a feeling on what is the climate in this area. And we see the same thing, relatively stable summer temperatures and huge variation in winter on a daily scale. And I also say the yellow here is the 1901 to 1930 temperatures, and you have a lot of years with very low temperatures. So when I worked with this data, it was easy to see what was wrong with the statistic from NRK, because I knew the data, I had a feeling for the data. So let's move on to another type of statistic, landslide statistic. This is published in 2023, and it says a huge increase in insurance claims from landslides. And it also say, together with increased danger from landslides in Norway. And a climate scientist is quoted saying, this is what resources have warned many years, and now we're seeing it playing out. This is from the news story on television about the same. They wrote an article and they showed it on the evening news. They showed the statistic, yearly number of insurance claims from landslides, yearly average, from around 100 in 1980s and 88 times in 2010s and 2020s. So it's a huge increase. And she says, the cause of this is more frequent and heavier downpour episodes, so heavy rains, styrtregn as we call it in Norway. And they also show statistics for this, and this is the text, so you know what they said. This curve shows the development in number of soil and flood landslides in Norway since 1980. It looks pretty similar, a huge increase. So I was a little bit curious about this. So let's step back and just think about what is landslides. So this is the type of landslides they are pointing to. This is the soil is giving away. So actually today, if you go to any news site in Norway, you'll see the top news today is one type of this landslide, because the main road through Norway, E6, was but hit by landslides. So now Norway is cut in half by rail and highway. So it's a huge consequence for Norway. But we also have something else in Norway. We have mountains. I think most of you know what this rock is. It's a pulpit rock, tourist destination. I've been there once, and I was afraid of, or I was worried about this crack. I don't think these people are worried about the crack, but I was. I think the researchers have checked this, and this is very stable. But we have many other types of such rocks in the fjord areas of Norway. This is from Tafjord. This is similar type of rock. In 1934, it fell down. And it created a flood wave. And the flood wave destroyed all the houses around. So 40 people killed in 1934. This type of landslides or rock falls is not covered by the statistic. So I was curious. So I asked, the source of this is a government agency. It's called the Norwegian Water Resources Energy Directorate. So they have all the data on this. So I asked for it, and I published it on my website. And the blue one here is the same, exactly the same as NRK published. But I got the total statistic, not only the, what's it called, water-triggered landslides. They filter out certain types of landslides, which covers the left one. And the point they're making is that when it rains a lot, it could trigger it. So this is water-triggered landslides. What happens if we add all? What do you think? Just try to imagine. This happens. This is the total statistic. The orange here is the right one, or not water-triggered, so to say. And the blue one is the water-triggered. So what's going on here? Why is there a huge increase in non-climate-related landslides in Norway? Well, in the article, they have an official quote from NVE, and I translated it for you. And they say they believe that part of the increase may also be due to better registration of landslides. But there still is an increase in the number of landslides, the acting section manager states. So he can conclude that we also see an increase, okay? He believes, anyways, the increase we see now is due to climate change, okay? And he also says, all reports have said that increased landslide activity is a consequence of climate change in Norway. And 1 degree warming, it's quite obvious that we'll see that. I was curious about this as well. In Norway, we have a law, and I think most of the Western countries have that law, Freedom of Information Act, often as slogan in Norway. I think that's one of the most important laws in Norway and Western countries, because it enables us to see behind the curtains of what the government does. So they have the communication between NVE and NRK. So I asked for the documentation. So any inhabitants can do that. So they sent me all the communication between NVE and NRK. So this is the initial mail. They asked about the statistic, and this is the initial mail. It went from a senior engineer in NVE to the press, the communication department, and they forwarded it to NRK. So she attached the Excel sheet, explained that they've done the filtration. This one is very interesting, so I translated that for you. It's worth noting that one cannot simply say that these numbers reflect a real development in the number of landslide events, since the focus on registering such events has increased considerably in recent years. However, one might see that the proportion of water-triggered landslides have gone up in comparison with other types of landslides. So this is another story. This is the email from the journalist back to NVE. He wasn't happy with that answer, so he had a lot of questions. He showed the damages, and he showed the statistic, and he pointed to the statistic, and he wanted them to explain the correlation between it. Why is this increasing? And why is the number of landslides increased, and why is the damages increased, and what happens when we have increased rainfall in Norway? That has happened, and the increased episode with heavy rains. And they wanted a comment. That's how they got the official comment, as I saw first. So they have two sources in NVE. The acting section manager believes that part of the increase may be also due to better registration, but there is still an increase in number of landslides. And he believes it's climate change. And we have the senior engineer. One cannot simply say that the number reflects a real development in the number of landslide events. They just disregarded the left one. So the public didn't see that information. And I also was curious about why do we see all these damages from landslides in Norway? Why is the insurance claims increased? So this is, when I search around, this is a summary from a NVE report published 2016. So I've done this in English for you. So society has fallen significantly behind maintaining its infrastructure in Norway. Lack of maintenance related to drainage increased the vulnerability to increased precipitation. Lack of maintenance amplified the extent of damage. In many places, drainage is undersized and misplaced. Increased urbanization has further exacerbated the problems. So we have had a huge increase in, or say 30 years, we have 1 million new inhabitants in Norway. They need, of course, housing and new roads and all that. This information didn't come forward. So NVA was asked about the consequences, and they didn't bring up this. And NRK didn't find this information. So the television report ended with an interview with a minister in Norway. This person, he was the climate and environment minister at that time. He says, this is getting more frequent, and this is what we were expected. And now it's here about the damages and increased landslides. And the journalist says, we have to cut emissions, but it's going too late. This is the reality now. My opinion is that this is not journalism, this is activism. They're holding back information that was not convenient for the story. What about global natural disasters? Do we have a global statistic on this? I found one in Our World in Data. We see an exponential increase on the recorded natural disaster events. It's a similar type of statistic. Covering, volcanoes and earthquakes, so it covers more. But they say it's increased deeply due to improved recording and expansion of communication technologies. And one interesting point here is that International Disaster Database notes that the database is mostly complete from 2000 onwards. And what happened with that statistic? So it's similar type of statistic as thing that happened with the Norwegian statistic. The last article I'll go through is about the Arctic sea ice. In Norway, that's a very popular topic because we have our Arctic and Svalbard area. So in 2022, the Arctic report card was published. 150 researchers contributed to that report, and NRK had an article that summarized some of the findings. One claim here I looked at. Sea ice is becoming increasingly thinner. And I was curious with it. I also published sea ice statistic in my webpage. I didn't see that corresponded with what I published. So I read the report, and I found some statistic. This is the estimated Arctic sea ice volume since 2010. No reduction since 2010. So how can this become increasingly thinner when it's stable? So I sent an email to NRK. This is the answer I got. It talks about the long-term trend, but it agrees that maybe they should have something about the stable thickness the last 10 years. And the yellow one translated. I've spoken with several researchers about this, and there was one of them who told me that sea ice was continuously getting thinner. I took it at face value. In Norway, we have a saying, took it for good fish. So it took it for good fish, and it didn't smell it. And it didn't smell good. It says something about how uncritical they seem to be on certain information. So what I do when I ask certain question to such type of question to the media, I always do an internet archive. So this is the original one, and this is the one after I sent the email. And they changed it. And it now says it's at the same level as last year, but well under the average. So he didn't say about the stability last 10 years, but it's not untrue. And what they did wrong here is that they didn't make the correction, as I showed with VG. It was changed without any explanation. So when I published the article, the day after they published it, I showed this picture, and the article got traction. So 3 days after, they were forced to add the correction, 29th December. There's another thing about this article. This is an exempt for one paragraph. They have one claim here about the North Pole. They say that it's going to shrink continuously going forward, but they have a claim here. North Pole is going to be ice-free as soon as 2040. And they have a source, so it looks very serious. You know, this is backed up. So when you touch this shows up. Barents Sea is going to be ice-free in 10 to 20 years. That's a different area of ocean. So I sent an email saying, you know, this is not true, shouldn't you correct this? They didn't want to correct this. So it's still, today if you go to this article, it still holds that claim with an incorrect source. So this example actually got some traction. Most of my articles are ignored by the establishment, but this one actually got picked up by the establishment. And I had a complaint to NRK, and since it's tax funded, so the only way to complain as a citizen of Norway that's funding this is through the NRK Broadcasting Council. So they hold the regular meetings, so it was one part of the meeting, and she had a comment, which I found very interesting. So I translated it for you and quoted her. She's the deputy leader of the NRK Broadcasting Council. She's an associate professor at the Institute of Journalism and Media Studies, Oslo. So she said, the specific complaint, but also other inquiries we receive, not just for this meeting, but always, indicate that climate is a conflict area. We get a lot of cases about it. It also says something about the fact that this journalism must be quite challenging to practice. It's a very important area to work on, but it's challenging because you quickly get arrested and reprimanded and receive criticism. And she points to me. One cannot see it as a single audience member and correct how NRK should conduct this news coverage. That's just not possible. Then there would be no coverage of the climate issue. We need more than ever for this issue to be covered, and sometimes you're getting it right level of precision, and other time you miss a bit. So, seems like they accept it, that it's like this. So, what does the future of climate journalism hold? This is a screenshot from an article in Journalisten. That's a news outlet covering journalism in Norway. They interviewed Agnes Walton. She's a climate journalist and Emmy winner. She was in the United States, so she moved to Norway actually. She wants less numbers and more feelings in climate journalism. And I translated this quote for you. You must not get too caught up in numbers, forecasts, reports, and graphs. That's not always what resonates, she says. She is now currently teaching climate journalism at the Norwegian Institute of Journalism. So I think the future, we see a little bit complex of the future. She is holding courses, I see. So in November you can attend this course. It's called Journalism with Climate Glasses. It costs 12,000 kroner, so you It's pretty steep if you're not a member of the press. So, yeah, maybe we'll see less graphs and less work for me then, because I can't fact check when it's not graphs and numbers. So I also publish other types of statistics, and the weather in Norway is getting more extreme. That's what we hear always in the media. It's getting more extreme, it's getting more extreme. And I published this statistic. It shows the extreme weather statistic for Norway, because in the beginning of the 90s in Norway, we had a huge storm that wasn't properly forecasted. So it caused huge damages. And then they started to track the storms. And they started to make reports and summaries of it. So what I did is I went to the website where they list all the storms, and I made a graph of it. Last year doesn't seem very extreme, does it? But I asked the Meteorological Institute for why is this? Can you explain what's happening here? And he said the statistic is built on it's subjective or criteria. So they're measuring the potential for damage, so that could change, he says. And we should be careful to make any conclusions that the criteria could have changed during this period. But yeah, I don't see any increase in and these are the named extreme weathers, so we don't at least see any extreme increase in the named extreme weathers. Yeah. I also publish temperature statistics. This is a very interesting temperature statistics. It's from Uppsala. Of course, Celsius is from Sweden, and they have a tradition for temperature science. And this is very interesting because we have very long-term statistics, 1722 to 2022. So you can go back, and it's very interesting because you have it on the daily level. They have the daily means from 1722 to today. But there's one interesting thing about this statistic. They note that there's an identified urban heat island effect from 2000 onwards. It's estimated to almost 0.6 degrees in 2010. So we had a record yearly mean temperature in, I think, 2020 maybe. But we should subtract 0.6. And then they're almost at the same level as, I think actually the same level than at 1700s record. Yeah. And I also published the daily mean. So in my website you can go into the statistics and you can filter any year. And this is the statistic. You have a lot of data points in the statistics. So this is the daily mean temperature in 1738. You can see the variation. So then I'm finished.